Coach Weeb Eubanks surveyed Shea Stadium last Sunday as his team prepared to meet the Redskins in what was to have been a long-awaited confrontation between the game's greatest passers. But it was not to be, for Billy Kilmer would be starting again for the Redskins. Sonny Jurgensen was out for the year with a torn Achilles tendon. Kilmer had performed well for George Allen before Jurgie took over early in the year. Last season, it was Kilmer who guided the Redskins to the playoffs. With Kilmer in there, however, the Redskins would probably rely more than ever on the NFL's leading runner, Larry Brown, and their strong ground game. George Allen would also count heavily on his defense and special teams, which have been so instrumental in producing a 6-1 record. Allen would look for ball control and strong pressure on Namath as the keys to victory over the Jets. The Jets, like the Redskins, have relied heavily on a balanced offense this season. Namath has exploited weak pass defenses when he has had the chance, but the Jets' ground attack with Boozer and Riggins and a superb offensive line has been almost as productive. Against the Redskins, Namath figured to throw often, however, as they have a strong ground defense but a vulnerable secondary. Coach Eubank hoped to improve on the Jets' 5-2 record by exploiting this secondary and by stopping Washington's ball control with his defense that is like Washington's, strong against the run but weak against the pass. And so for the first time ever, the Redskins met the Jets, both teams hoping to solidify their chances to make the playoffs. And although the Namath-Jurgensen duel was never to happen, a sellout crowd awaited the start of one of the biggest games of the 1972 season. This is the NFL Game of the Week, the Jets against the Redskins. The first quarter would see both teams score, but in somewhat a different manner than had been expected. The Redskins took the opening kickoff, and with it, good field position on Bob Brunet's 38-yard return to the 44. Both teams would try to outguess the other in overall strategy and specific plays. The Redskins ran 3 straight plays on their first series, but figuring the Jets would be keying on Larry Brown, it was Charlie Haraway who did the running. The Jets' defense allowed no big gains, but Haraway did get a first down. Then on first down, Kilmer went to the air and went long. The Jets had the receiver covered, but Kilmer lofted a beautiful pass to Roy Jefferson between defenders, and Washington was ahead 7-0 on only their 4th play of the game. The Jets, too, tried to run early on Washington. In his first series, Namath used Emerson Boozer, number 32, and John Riggins, number 44, and they picked up a couple of first downs with 5- and 6-yard thrusts. But the Jets never got past midfield as Jack Pardee, the Redskins' great linebacker, made several key tackles on 2nd and 3rd downs. New York had to give up the ball. Namath had not thrown one pass thus far, calling 8 straight running plays. On the Redskins' second possession, Kilmer again threw on first down and almost had another score on a bomb to Larry Brown. Then he went back to the run, but the Jets' defense twice stopped Brown cold. The Jets would hold Brown to just 22 yards in the half, one of the big surprises of the game. The Redskins had to punt, and the Jets took good field position as Steve Tannen nearly blocked it, causing Kurt Knight to punt higher and shorter than he wanted. The ball on the Skins' 40. Namath threw his first pass of the game, good for 18 yards to Don Maynard. Namath, like Kilmer, was trying to outguess the defense, throwing on first down. But from here, the Jets again stuck to their ground game. Behind a good block on number 53, middle linebacker Harold McClinton by Dave Herman, Riggins carried on a trap up the middle and got down to the 4. Two plays later, Riggins hit over a big hole off right tackle, and the Jets had evened the game. Ironically, the Jets had had success running, and the Redskins had scored on the big play, a reversal of what had been expected. Riggins' touchdown marked the end of the first quarter as the game was tied 7 apiece. With the game tied, the Redskins opened the second quarter with Kilmer again trying to spring the premier runner in the NFL on runs and screens. But the Jets' secondary was coming up fast to contain Brown. And it was working, as Brown had trouble getting by Chris Ferrisopoulos, the Jets' free safety. Brown, who needed 159 yards to pass 1,000 on the season, would not get it today. In fact, he was injured on the previous play. Although he shortly returned, the ankle twist may have hampered his cutting ability for the rest of the game. In any event, the Jets were doing what no other team had been able to do, stop Larry Brown, and they took over, as the Redskins were unable to control the ball at all in the first half. Namath would try to throw on first down again, but the Redskins' front four would put a lot of pressure on him throughout the rest of the half. He went down like a rag doll here, but that's because Verlin Biggs, the former Jet, pulled him down by his face mask. The penalty negated the loss, but the Redskins' defense again prevented New York from crossing midfield. The Redskins' secondary was denying Namath his forte, the long pass, so Joe was taking what he was given, the short pass underneath the linebackers. But Boozer was unable to spring himself off the short passes. The defense was closing fast on him. The pressure on Namath continued, forcing him to move out of his pocket and throw on the run, something he rarely does. The Jets had to give up the ball again. Midway through the period, the Jets got their first big break when Kilmer, again throwing long on first down, overthrew right into Gus Holloman's arms. A nice return set the Jets up on the Redskins' 34. An isolated replay of the last play will show what happened to Kilmer. Kilmer saw his misfire all the way and tried to get out of Jerry Philbin's grasp to make a tackle on Holloman. He succeeded in escaping Philbin, but was upended by another lineman. Kilmer's spirit undaunted, he got up to try again and ended up watching the tackle being made. Such is a quarterback's lot on an interception. From here, although aided by a pass interference call, the Jets couldn't take it in as Harold McClinton stopped the Jets on 3 straight plays. On first and second down, he stopped the run. And on third down, number 53 blitzed Namath and tipped his pass, which fell incomplete. The Jets settled for a field goal and a 10-7 lead. The Redskins' next series saw Kilmer try to run Brown again, but he couldn't pick up a first down on 2 plays that brought up a 3rd and 2. On the 3rd down play, Kilmer play faked to Haraway and just did beat a blitz by number 60, Larry Grantham. Kilmer again intently tried to watch his pass, and this time he would like what he saw. A replay from the top will show why. Kilmer's pass just beat Steve Tannen, and Charlie Taylor was off to a 70-yard touchdown. Kilmer had again guessed right on the 3rd and 2 call. The Jets were up tight thinking run, showing the importance of having the threat of a Larry Brown. Ironically, the long pass had given the Redskins both their scores. Washington now led by 4, 14-10. The Redskins' 4-point lead lasted one play. It quickly became 11 as Namath again was pressured and threw right into the teeth of a Redskins zone. Chris Hanberger intercepted, and followed number 41, Mike Bass, who cleared Hanberger's way into the end zone. The Redskins' defense had caused their first turnover. It was a big one, ballooning their lead to 21-10. With a minute and a half left in the first half, Namath tried to get these points back, but the Skins' front line was giving him more trouble than any team New York has faced. In fact, Washington thought they had another big break when the punt was blocked, but Ted Bachter kicked the ball, trying to make a recovery, and the Jets kept possession, the penalty negating the play. So, with time for just a few more plays, Namath again went to the air. Chris Hanberger was there again to end any hopes of the Jets moving into field goal range. It had been a surprising first half, with the Redskins' offense unable to control the ball but scoring on the big play, while their defensive line had put great pressure on Namath, also somewhat of a surprise. The Jets had outgained the Redskins on the ground and had controlled the ball far more, but mistakes and an inability to pass on Washington had put Joe Namath and the Jets down by 11 with 30 minutes to play. A record crowd had seen their Jets limited in the first half to an incredible 16 net yards passing. But on the first series of the new half, the Jets and Joe Namath came out firing. On his second play, however, Namath tried for Emerson Boozer over the middle, and number 53, Harold McClinton, intercepted. McClinton, one of the top men on George Allen's bomb squad, was playing middle linebacker today in place of the injured Myron Pontios. While the Skins had effectively thwarted Joe Namath, the Jets had held Washington's big gun in check also. But here, after that interception, Larry Brown broke loose for the first time today. The NFL's leading runner fumbled, but after the whistle had blown. So the gain was good for 24 yards to the New York 20-yard line. It was the first and last hefty gain on the ground for Brown today. Washington's momentum was halted when Jerry Philbin, number 81, tripped up Brown for a loss of 7 yards. Though they were ahead by 11, Washington was still not moving the ball consistently on offense. And on this, their first series of the second half, Washington had failed to capitalize on the break their defense had given them. They failed to capitalize because from the 30, Kurt Knight's field goal attempt was wide to the right. The Jets took over on their 20. Once again, Joe Namath came out firing. His first pass was incomplete, but Washington's Mike Bass was called for pass interference, and New York had a first down. From the 31, Namath then passed to Rich Castor at the left sideline for a gain of 10 yards. Here, New York returned to the run, and John Riggins. Riggins was about all the Jet fans could cheer so far today. He had gained 54 yards running in the first half and battled for an additional 12 yards on this play for a third straight Jet first down. From the 47, Namath successfully returned to the air, but again it was the short square out, not the fabled long strike. The Redskin defense wasn't giving any of those, but New York was moving the ball with their short game. But on their own 36, Washington's fine defense really got tough. They smothered Emerson Boozer, then John Riggins on 3 consecutive plays for little or no gain. The over-the-hill gang had halted New York's longest series of the game and forced a three-point try. But even this attempt to score went awry when Bobby Howfield's 37-yard kick hit the crossbar. On their first series of the half, each team had moved the ball well, yet had nothing to show for it. On the ensuing sequence, Washington again tried to run their powerful backs Larry Brown and Charlie Haraway, but again the fired-up Jet defense would have none of it and forced a punt. When New York got the ball, the Skins defense forced Joe Namath to do a very un-Namath-like thing, roll out of his pocket. He almost got away with it, but receiver Eddie Bell coughed up the ball. So the pigskin changed sides once more. Billy Kilmer just beat an all-out blitz by dropping a pass over the Jet defenders into the hands of Larry Brown. Brown's flying feet did the rest. "89 yards later, Brown was safely in the end zone, and the Washington Redskins were safely in the lead, 28-10. Fittingly, the two men who had combined for the big play were Billy Kilmer and Larry Brown. As a replacement for Sonny Jurgensen, Kilmer came into the game determined to show the Redskins offense would not miss a beat under his leadership. Already, he had hit 3 long gainers against the team that has the ace bombardier in pro football, Joe Namath. Larry Brown was virtually stopped today as a runner. He would gain only 46 yards rushing, but picked up an additional 96 as a receiver. That's the kind of player this great little back is. Stop him one way, he'll find another way to beat you. Meanwhile, the Jets again failed to move the ball and were forced to punt at the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was to be their most effective offensive play of the second half. Speedy Duncan fumbled the fair catch, and New York had the ball on Washington's 15-yard line. Number 71, John Mooring of the Jets special teams, made the key recovery of the ball that the usually sure-handed Duncan had muffed. Ironically, one aspect of this game not noticed was that New York kept Washington's dangerous kick return teams pretty much in check all day long. This time, the Jets and Namath quickly took advantage of the gift when Namath pegged a pass to Don Maynard in front of defender Pat Fisher. New York once again had reduced the margin to 11 points. The remainder of the final quarter went according to today's form. New York couldn't move the ball against Washington and was forced to punt. But their specialty teams thwarted any long returns by Washington's dangerous returners. When Washington had the ball, Kilmer protected his lead by staying on the ground. But the Jet defense continued its hard, charging, aggressive play. Larry Brown was forced to battle to even attain the line of scrimmage. But there was one more big play left in this ball game, and unfortunately for New York and the record 63,962 fans, it belonged to the opposing team and particularly to a former teammate. Under pressure deep in his own territory, Namath was hit by Bill Brundage and lost the ball. It was gratefully recovered by number 89, Verlin Biggs, who scored. It was an emotional moment for the 6'4", 275-pound former Jet, who was playing against his ex-teammates for the first time. Biggs almost missed today's game with a leg injury, but he heard a New York radio broadcast in which another former Jet deprecated Biggs' play in his 6 years as a Jet. Biggs reported it was this that fired him up for the game. The touchdown capped a great afternoon for Biggs, and afterwards he was to receive one of the game balls from his team. Last year, he got one for his play in a victory over the Giants in New York, but it said, "This is the right city, but the wrong team." And now, jumping for joy in the enemy end zone, Verlin Biggs' revenge was complete. Also complete was the end of the Jets' hopes of catching the Miami Dolphins, for the moment at least, in the Eastern Division race in the AFC. New York now trails the undefeated Miami team by 3 full games. Just about any hopes the Jets have of making the playoffs will have to come as the wild card team in their conference. George Allen watched the clock run down and the two teams play out the final moments of the game. For Washington, it was the 7th win in 8 outings, the 2nd consecutive victory over a New York team. They have a chance to make it 3 straight when they meet the Giants next week. Today's big victory for Washington, in a game you had to attend to see, kept the Skins on top of the Eastern Division of the National Conference, 1 game ahead of the defending Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboys. There were heroes galore for Washington: Billy Kilmer, Vernon Biggs, Larry Brown, many others. But the biggest hero of all in Washington, and perhaps all of football, has to be George Allen. Allen is the man who conceived the over-the-hill gang and made the concept work. Veterans like Biggs, Kilmer, Roosevelt Taylor, Jack Pardee, Pat Fisher, Speedy Duncan, Myron Patios, Ron McDowell, and others are playing for the Redskins because they were unhappy elsewhere. With George Allen, they have found a home in Washington. Allen's concentration to win is legend, and an incident that took place earlier this week adds to that legend. When he heard that Larry Brown's photograph was to be on the cover of a national sports magazine this week, Allen, in his compulsion to win, phoned the editor and futilely tried to persuade him to cancel the cover. Allen was afraid it would jinx his team for this big game with the Jets. As the events of this Sunday in New York have demonstrated, George Allen needn't have worried. The NFL Game of the Week, brought to you by American Express, the company for people who travel, and flown to you by Pan Am, the world's most experienced